Welcome to Morningsong Take 1 live streaming. You don't get a second take. No want one. I don't usually ever have my instruments out in the morning except like maybe 2 or 3, 4 before I go to bed. But so then I'm going to start with a little bit of the old music from the old country because it's something that people associate with the Appalachians is because it was such a archive, a living archive of so much music from the old Europeans that came over, Scots, Irish, and English, and some of the tunes were saved very close to the original. So I'm going to do one of the old tunes that's really saved in this part of the country more. I see it in the old fiddle repertoires. That Molly Put the Kettle On. I think it comes from like the old English. Polly put the kettle on. So here's a little bit of it here. It's got you can hear a little bit of that kind of bagpipey sound. I actually learned a very simplified version of that up in North Carolina. I'm used to being in Georgia, so I go up in North Carolina, but I mean, not far from here. I lived for a while in Old Fort, North Carolina, and when I was about 22 years old, I lived in here and started getting into fiddle collecting stuff when I was pretty young, and so. I learned the old version from he was a one-armed fiddler. I didn't learn it. I didn't meet the actual gentleman, but he used to play the fiddle with his knee like that, with the bow in his knee, and he'd move the fiddle around like that. And so I always did a little bit of that because because that's the version I learned from his nephew in Marion, North Carolina. His name was Homer. I used to hang out like a lot of musicians do. We'd hang out at the pawn shop, and because there's always instruments hanging around. So I'd go over there on my lunch hour and hear some of the old tunes. And I met a fellow up there near Old Fort, because that's the closest city where I lived. It was to get the mail. His name was Edsel Martin, and he made dulcimers and wood carving. He taught my wife and I how to carve. We were pretty didn't have much of a income at the time, and so he taught us how to carve birds. And he was come to find out he's a pretty like nationally known wood carver, and in his family, so some of his stuff is in the the folklore museums, and come to find out he said, oh yeah, my father played the fiddle, and he was a good fiddler, and if I had known, I would have probably interviewed him if I'd have known a little better, because his father was the very revered Marcus Martin, who was from around Swannanoa. So Marcus, that was that tune is in a lot of the repertoire of that area, including Marcus Martin, that Molly Put the Kettle On, and Lady Hamilton, some of the old Scottish tunes. So now we'll do something here, because it's supposed to be Morningsong. I know people like to sing along. I don't have a lot of sing-alongs, but if you ever catch the last line and you want to sing along with something, feel free. I'll try. We'll call that a chorus. Let's see here. On the banjo, we like to tune things to our voices. So. Let's do this here. We'll do some of that, some of this modal tuning. Good thing in the morning that I usually like to have a chicken tune. So. sure I use all my instruments before. So Michael said, you're going to have time to get all those instruments. And I think probably just a couple of tunes, and we'll have them all in. I only brought 3. Sometimes I do this and people go, where's the rest of the band at? This is another chicken tune from Georgia. I'll try not to sing. A lot of these little stanzas, they call them, like little nursery rhyme stanzas. They call them traveling verses because they fit into one song or another, and they'll kind of you'll hear them just plugged in like into different tunes that match. And sometimes the fiddle tune will take its name like from part of the stanza, so that's where we get a lot of different names of fiddle tunes that are different tunes entirely that have the same name, and then we have just the opposite, which is like many names for the same tune. So this is called "Who Broke the Lock on the Hen House Door." Rode up to the farmer's gate. I blew my horn 'cause I was late. Said that his dog wouldn't bark nor bite, but that son of a gun got the end of my hide. Now who broke that lock? I don't know. Who broke the lock on the hen house door? I found out before I go. Who broke the lock on the hen house door? But the dog wouldn't bite. He said, that's not my dog. Down in the hen house on my knees, thought I heard a chicken sneeze. Just that rooster, he's singing his prayers, thanking the Lord for the hens upstairs. Now who broke the lock? I don't know. Who broke the lock on the hen house door? I'll find out before I go. Who broke the lock on the hen house door? So that could be considered a Morningsong chorus if you can. The closest thing I have to is sing along. Now there was a rooster way out west. The hen said, honey, I love you the best. The rooster said, I know you're a pop-out liar. I seen you in the alley with that big Shanghai. Now who broke the lock? I don't know. Who broke the lock on the hen house door? I'll find out before I go. Who broke the lock on the hen house door? Told, done a lot of things. Let's see. Rooster 40 years old. There we go. There was a rooster 40 years old. He done a lot of things, so I've been told. And he's so old he can barely scratch. But somehow or another all the eggs still hatch. So who broke the lock? I don't know. Who broke the lock on the hen house door? I'll find out before I go. Who broke the lock on the hen house door? Big old rooster think he's so tough. He's up in the morning strutting his stuff. He wakes everybody with a cock-a-doodle-doo. Old hen cackle, any doodle-doo. Who broke the lock? I don't know. Who broke the lock on the hen house door? I found out before I go. Who broke the lock on the hen house door? Bit of a double entendre there in there, so I hope that wasn't too offensive to our live stream listeners. That's good. So, well, while we got the guitar on, I think when I was waking up this morning, I was barely light, and it reminded me of a couple of songs with morning themes, and I was thinking of one that I actually met the gentleman that wrote this song. A lot of people heard this next song from Hetty West, who was part of the folk revival. She played the banjo, and she was from North Georgia, and her father, Don West, played this. She learned it from her dad. And there's an old fellow that used to come down to the bluegrass festivals in metro Atlanta area. There was one for WFG, that's a Radio Free Georgia. And he would be there. His name was Uncle Lester, Uncle Smallwood. And I didn't realize that he had written this tune. I used to bet he was a regular fellow there, but then one day I heard on the radio, they had him interviewed on Radio Free Georgia with my friend Lewis Wills, who lives up in Madison County now, the Asheville area. And he interviewed Uncle Smallwood on there, and he says, yeah, I wrote that song back in 1926, and then the Victor Company, they said they wanted to record it, so I recorded it with them. And he made the first copy, first version of this tune called, it was called Cotton Mill Girl, or Hard Times in the Cotton Mills. I think his version was Hard Times in the Cotton Mill. And it's a lot like Bottle Them Cabbage, but then he put words to it. And then the Victor Company said it was a big hit. I mean, I actually had that 78 still. I still have back in the day before they had all this sound files. You had to actually go out and scavenge at antique stores and trade lots and flea markets and stuff, and get the old records, and you'd have to kind of listen real close. Some of them were so wore out and crackly, you'd have to really listen close or turn all the high end off so you could hear. But this was a big seller. This was would be equivalent of probably a, I don't know, want to say gold record, but it was very, very widely known at the time. And so Victor Company came back and said, Lester, we'd like to sign you up. We'd like to sign you up and make some more records. And he said, no, I don't want to sign anything. I don't want to sign anything. He said, I don't want to sign away he was afraid that somebody told him that, the big city people will take your money, don't sign anything. So, and then of course then other people started making the records and making money, and then in that interview he said, yeah, my wife's been telling me for 40 years, should have signed that paper. So he never signed that paper, but he did. So he's got this was one tune that lasted for him, is the Hard Times in the Cotton Mill, and it's got traveling verses that people have added to it. I think like maybe Hetty West might have added some. Let's see. There's words that talk about North Georgia. From Gilmer to Bartow is a long, long way. Down to Cortacay from Ellijay. So that's they're going from Gilmer County to Bartow County, which is a big textile area down closer to the railroads of Atlanta. So people would come down from the mountains and work in the cotton mills and the textile industry, and it would follow along that Cortacay River. So from Gilmer to Bartow is a long, long way. Down to Cortacay from Ellijay. It's a hard time in the cotton mill. It's a hard time everywhere. They said working in the city won't do you any harm, but I wish I'd stayed back on the farm. It's a hard time in the cotton mill. It's a hard time everywhere. We stay in the country and you go bust, but now I just got lungs full of cotton dust. It's a hard time in the cotton mill, a hard time everywhere. Wake up in the early morning when they blow the horn, before the sun comes up in the morning. It's a hard time in the cotton mill, hard time everywhere. Those poor little children didn't go to school, they just learned to spin and learned to spool. It's a hard time in the cotton mill, but it's a hard time everywhere. Should just stay back in the farm, have fresh air, fresh garden vegetables. Didn't need much money because nothing to buy. Them cabbage down, turn them hoe cakes round, and the only song I can play is about them cabbage down. Now I worked in the cotton mill all my life. I got nothing to show but this Barlow knife. It's a hard time in the cotton mill, a hard time every way. Well, they went up on the wages half a cent. Poor people didn't know what it meant. It's a hard time in the cotton mill, a hard time every way. They went up on the wages a nickel more, but they went up a dime at the company store. It's a hard time in the cotton mill, it's a hard time every way. So when I die, don't you bury me at all, just to hang my bones up on the spinning room wall, pickle me and alcohol. It's a hard time every way. Hard to squeeze in all those. I was trying to think ahead what all the different verses that'd be good to hear, but they have. I like that one that they mentioned the company store in there. They went up on the wages, and it was like, well, we're going to give you a raise, and then of course they had this systematic kind of Milltown economy that was kind of a monopolized situation where the housing was owned by the mill, and the company store was owned by the mill, and so they were controlling the income, the whole economy, but so they had the people in debt. So that reminds me of another song. Let's do another company store song. That's reminds me of that. It's called Riley the Furniture Man, and he wasn't making like furniture like they do here. They called him Riley the Furniture Man. He was a repo man. So he would if you missed one payment, they would come back and take the stuff that you were buying on time. So sometimes they would lure the people in to buy stuff on time, on credit, and then if they missed a payment, they would have to come and repossess it. So there's a couple of different versions of it. Riley, Keno the Rent Man, and Riley the Furniture Man, and Riley the Repo Man. Maybe just go to a different tune just for change of pace. I don't know if I can sing it here or not. Now here come Mr. Riley knocking on the door. If you don't have the money, he's gonna haul it off for sure. Riley's been here, done took my furniture and gone. Makes no difference to Riley if you can't pay on time. Riley come to my house and he took everything of mine. Riley's been here, he done took my furniture and gone. Well, Riley come to my house. These are the words he said. He told that wagon driver, take down that rosewood bed. Riley's been here, took my furniture and gone. He played on my piano and danced upon my floor. Loaded up into the wagon and back to the company store. Riley's been here, took my furniture and gone. Well, I had some window draperies, I had me some bric-a-brac. Riley come up in my house and he took everything back. Riley's been here, he took my furniture and gone. There's nothing left in the pantry, might as well go off to bed. Went to hang my hat on the bedpost, fell on the floor instead. Riley's been here, took my furniture and gone. Well, Riley's been in my house. Let's see, what else? Something about chair, don't have a table, something like that. Oh yeah, Riley's been to my house. Now I know he's been here. He left me a barrel for a table and a bucket for a chair. O'Reilly's been here, done took my furniture and gone. O'Reilly's been here, took my furniture and gone. I want to say take two, but no way to edit that out. This is live. This is real live folk music for live folks. Speaking of which, I left my coffee a long way, but I think it's time for a coffee song because we have to celebrate all the coffee making people. Let's see. Let's do I think this is probably better on the guitar as well. I got this song. I collected this song from. I knew this. There's another guy that used to be around. A lot of these people were around that I saw were. I didn't realize they were sort of kind of architects, or not architects, but kind of heroes of the back in the old golden era of the '78 era, like the Tanner family, Gordon Tanner and Lester Smallwood I mentioned. And this is another character that made one record. He made one record in 1929. Not a good year to start your career. If you know about the great crash of '29, there was there was more records made way before the Depression than during the Depression. The only people making records generally was people like Jimmy Rogers and the Carter family, the big acts that they would keep making. But a lot of those smaller acts, they weren't making records anymore. So, but this was one from a fellow in Carrollton. And he played the banjo, and I knew about him because he was at the festivals playing banjo, and he probably mostly played bluegrass then, but he made one of my favorite old-time records in 1929 called Rome, Georgia Bound. That's a good one. And on the other side of that was Georgia Wobble Blues. But then he was being interviewed, and he was on a Carrollton, West Georgia radio station, and he was trying to remember. He said, I had a lot of songs. I only had that one record was come out, and that was it. And then later he actually made a LP with some of his music on there. And he still didn't have this song, but he mentioned it on the radio, and he sang a little bit of it. He couldn't remember it. I can't recollect, but it was a good song. It was called "Make My Coffee Black," and he sang a little bit of it. And but then he said, he mentioned some other things, but he couldn't remember it. So I kind of filled in some of the things that he mentioned and tried to make it a little more complete. But it's kind of and then a little after note on that, I actually saw that he had made a 45 record of this thing, "Make My Coffee Black." And I said, I'm going to bid. So I bid on that record because it was a very rare record. And I saw it. It was 45. It was made in the 60s with his son. Uncle John Patterson, that was his name. Uncle John Patterson. Everybody's called Uncle or Grandpa, something like that. But this Uncle John Patterson, "Make My Coffee Black." I got a bid on that, so I got it. I paid like $30 for this record. I said because it's for the song. I need, I can write a grant for it or something like that later. But I got that record, and I was so excited. I put the thing on. I'm gonna get the song. Here it is, and it was all banjo. It was just a banjo. There's no words. Oh my God, he made the record. I guess he couldn't remember the lyrics back then either. I don't know. So well, I woke up this morning feeling mighty bad. Honey, baby, just make my coffee black. Ain't going to work this morning. Gonna lay around the shack. Honey, baby, just make my coffee black. Well, pass around the biscuits, pass around the jam, pass around them golden eggs and that good old country ham. Don't need a cream and sugar, baby, you can take it back. Honey, baby, just make my coffee black. Dawson. Well, when you make that red-eyed gravy, I hope you'll understand. When I roll my sleeves up and sop it right out of the pan, I don't need cream and sugar, you can take it back. Honey, baby, just make my coffee black. Honey, baby, just make my coffee black. We've extended our contractual obligation, but for those of y'all that are still in a sipping coffee mode and not quite ready to stand in line, I'll do you one of my own compositions now. This is called Breakfast with You. It's a big hit in my small world. That's a good thing about old time. It's just like you can be a big fish in your local goldfish bowl. Now this one's written on a kind of the style of the old Cole Porter kind of stuff. They love these old songs that have introductions and to kind of set it up like for Broadway. You know, they'd have a lot of these old songs you don't remember nowadays the introductions because nobody sings the introductions, but they'd have a little setup, something like, there are many ballads that tell about the lights of gay exotic places and celebrated nights. But how I wish I might share with you my intimate and secret appetite. Ever since we met, I've been getting my hunch. I bet you think I mentioned I'd like to do luncheon. I'm craving your attention. Am I asking too much? I just want to have breakfast with you. Could have dinner at 8 and then a movie at 10. And after the show, can I see you again? Up to your place for a little nightcap, and then I wanna have breakfast with you. Now we've got an awful lot of coffee perking the pot, a bit of butter batter, and that waffle line's hot. So put it on the table in a little sunny spot. It's better than tea for two. So when I come a knocking with my slippers in my hand, a toothbrush in my pocket, you know what I got planned. I'm not a morning person, but here I am again. I just want to have breakfast with you. And so when the day's done and they are stretching down the yard, don't you bother knocking early in the morning. My breakfast nook is open and I'm hoping you'll come on in. I want to have breakfast with you. I hope you've enjoyed that little, not more double entendre there with the like to have breakfast. I was always thinking that was probably the best pickup line. But I gotta admit, I kind of stole it from George Bernard Shaw because there was a little, we have these famous people quotations, and it was like, George Bernard Shaw was apparently courting some young woman, and he said, "You are looking ravishing, my dear." And she said, "Well, you should see me in the morning." He said, "That's what I have in mind." So maybe we'll call it out as you are leaving. We could possibly do a little, nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina in the morning. Nothing could be sweeter than my sweetie when she meets me in the dawning. Where those morning glories twine around my door, whispering pretty stories I long to hear once more. But nothing could be sweeter than my sweetie when she meets me in the morning. The butterflies all flutter up, 'cause kiss each little buttercup at dawning. If I had Aladdin's lamp for only a day, I'd make a wish, and here's what I'd say. Nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina in the morning.